You're listening to Second Cut. This is the podcast formerly of thefilmmagazine.com, where we talk about topics in film theory, history, criticism, and whatever else strikes our fancy.
In memoriam.
There's a lot of in memoriam going on lately. I'm Jacob, and I'm the one who was able to get 2 articles dedicated to Lynch on the Film Magazine.
I'm Sam, and much like the owls, I am not what I seem.
I'm Kieran. I really want a drink of water now. I don't know.
Yes.
Blue contacts.
Unfortunately, David Lynch died on January 15th. It hit me really hard because I love his movies. He's such an interesting figure. But yeah, I mean, he was looking pretty rough. The last update I saw, he was on an oxygen mask. I mean, the dude was smoking since he was 8. It's tragic, but you know, he lived a long life and did a lot of great work.
And he went out kind of the way he wanted to go, pretty much, and so still smoking like a chimney, and speaking his mind, just being a really kind of unique goofball.
Unique goofball is the way to put it. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of. I've seen a few things online, kind of the same. What was like the last kind of major celebrity death where literally that no one had a bad word to say about them, and it was just an outpouring of sheer grief. And a lot of people suggested Bowie, possibly. It's like.
Don't
like
mention that. Have you seen the news in the past couple of hours?
No.
Robert Eggers is doing a Labyrinth sequel.
I thought you were going to say that there's an executive order that David Bowie is like dead or something, no longer exists.
No, for once it has nothing to do with US politics.
I thought you were about to say Bowie had been cancelled.
I mean, don't push it too far.
I think the only bad thing you could say about David Lynch is he is one of lots of people that signed the Polanski petition. But, I mean, lots of people signed the Polanski petition.
Yeah, for a variety of reasons, not just ignoring all the horrible stuff he did. But...
Yes. That gets bandied about, and I think there is nuance to it that's not, we are in favor of rape.
I should say very quickly that obviously we are kind of doing this for David Lynch, but we don't have news segments anymore, but we are aware that about 7-8 hours ago, the Oscars lists dropped. So we will not be covering that unless people want to get it out of the way very, very quickly. But this is a David Lynch episode, so we are aware that there is major film news that has come out today. But
let's have a little bit maybe of a positive break. I mean, we're going to celebrate David Lynch, but the fact that he's dead is very sad for me. So sure, let's get a little bit of Oscars talk in here, and we'll have plenty of Lynch as well.
I was going to say, let's say that obviously. As I hit the wrong button.
Here's the first thing I need to say is I need to watch Emilia Perez. That's pretty much my only thought.
I was going to say, it's like there are some things that I need to actually get to.
I think that the Emilia Perez kind of momentum is really taking me aback, to be honest, because I'd say it's decent. I quite enjoyed it, but I'm not really sure if it's at that level.
Do we think it's? I mean, I haven't seen it. I've heard rough themes that may be in it. Do we think that perhaps those are one of the reasons why it's got more credit than it might otherwise deserve? A bit of Oscar baiting, if that makes sense.
Yeah, having a first trans actress, best lead kind of nomination is a major thing. It's not about Russia. That is an event. That is a milestone. But and she is great in the film. But I kind of get why a lot of LGBTQ plus people have issues with the way the film kind of approaches that subject. There are issues with it. I get why people have issues with it, but it's entertaining. It's well put together. Performances are good. There's plenty of good things about it. But I think compared to a lot of the other films in the list, it seems a little bit out of place.
And it is nice to see a not in the English language, non-Anglophone production from countries like that get that many nominations, if nothing else.
I think another thing that I've seen about the film is mainly about its portrayal of like Mexican culture, and it's from like a French filmmaker, and I haven't seen so much of the trans like aspects of it critiqued, but I mean, I think it's I don't need something to be perfect right now. For anyone who for some reason hasn't heard, the United States president has declared that a man is the thing with the small reproductive whatever, and a woman is the one with the big one. So,
and a judge has. Oh no, that was a different thing that a judge has stopped, isn't it? Recently,
a different atrocity.
Yeah.
That was the birthright thing, wasn't it?
Yes.
That stopped, yeah. But yeah.
Sam, you can't come here and have babies, and they become U.S. citizens now. I'm sorry to say.
It's my right. There's a man to have babies.
It's still in your constitution, though, isn't it? So that's going to be going all the way up the court. So I would imagine.
But anyway, checking things over, there's a couple of weird ones. Admittedly, I was watching the live announcement because they did it on Instagram, so I was checking them out as they were going them off, and for about 95% of them, even the ones I haven't seen, I was going, fair, that makes sense. So even if we don't 100% agree with where they are, most of them you can see why they're there. Some stuff like documentaries, like I've seen no document because I haven't got anywhere to go and see them.
No.
So like they just don't get to us unless you are at the film festivals.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen anything. Well, apart from Emilio Perez, I haven't seen anything else in the film like the English language category. And I'm not even sure if they've been released in this country yet, whether we're still waiting on them, or whether they came out with no ceremony a few months ago and we missed them. I've no idea.
Yeah, it's that kind of thing, and things like the short films and animated short films. Like if somebody knows of a streaming platform like specifically dedicated to documentaries or to short films or stuff like that, please let us know, because aside from like ones from like 40 years ago that are having a retrospective on Disney, they don't get shown anywhere other than the film festivals. So for a lot of those stuff, we can talk about the main ones, but those films should also get mentioned as much as everything else, because there's a hell of a lot of work put into them, and it's hard to make them. You got to get the cast and crew, and we just don't get to see them because they don't come out anywhere that's possible and accessible.
Yeah, personally, I'm absolutely thrilled to say that we can now say Oscar-nominated directors Sean Baker and Coralie Faget. That's amazing. That's I just love it. When they do kind of recognise, it's not just the massively scaled productions. It's kind of the interesting smaller films, that really kind of stand out from the crowd. That are worthy of recognition, which I was going to say always done in the past.
Yeah, the AI kind of controversies don't seem to have affected Brutalist or Emilia Perez is slightly in that, but it's mainly on Brutalist, isn't it?
By the way, I claim the Brutalist when we do an Oscar episode. I got to see that in IMAX, and oh my god,
it's not out in the UK yet. Does it come out tomorrow? Next week?
It's tomorrow.
It's not
I had to drive
me, so.
an hour away to go to like a giant IMAX theater with 10 people, and yeah.
I mean, my local IMAX has just reopened in the past couple of weeks, so I might have to make a special trip for it.
Local IMAX.
Bradford, City of Culture.
I also want to, we've talked a bit about the mixed and the good. A Complete Unknown and James Mangold should not be on these lists. Timothée Chalamet, cool. Ed Norton, no. Like he was nothing special in that movie, guys. Like, what are we doing?
It came out last week for us, and I could have gone to see it. Kind of when I went to see Wolfman, I half considered it because I was there, and I'm like, I kind of have no interest. I'm not a Dylan person, and I just expected it to just be like, oh, it's one of those biopics that doesn't really do anything. People will go see it who are Dylan fans. It might make 100 mil if you're lucky, and it'll vanish. A bit like Bob Marley has done last year. and Rocket Man and things like that. But then it comes out and it's like got like 7, 8 nominations. What the hell?
It should be Better Man. Better Man should be in every
Hmm.
spot that is a complete unknown, except
Yeah.
for Chalamet. Like, no offense to the guy that plays Robbie Williams slash Robbie Williams sometimes doing himself.
The monkey.
Well, yeah, because they did the guy in mocap and he does his voice, but Robbie Williams sings and narrates. But that's the only place I would put Chalamet over him. Chalamet's really good. The rest,
yeah. I am actually very happy that 2 of the animated features are also in non-animation categories. So Flow and Wild Robot. Flow is in not in the English language, and Wild Robot is in score. I haven't seen either of them because, as we know, I don't see modern movies unless they're horror. But I am very happy, even if it's a very slight thing. It's
Flow's not out. Flow's not out over here yet. I think it might be next month. I think so. We get it last as per usual. But Wild Robot is well worth seeking out. I'd say. But yeah, it is nice when it does crop in those categories. Like the other year, we had Flea, appearing in the documentary category as well as the animation category, which was nice. I think having with the Substance, obviously, being nominated for best picture is great. Demi Moore finally getting a best actress nod, which was expected, but still good to see.
Yeah, I am very upset that Substance didn't get nominated for sound because I literally walked out of it, and I think I shoved on Blue Sky or Twitter or something like that. The first thing I said was I literally came out, put up a phone, and put in "Give them the Oscar already." I've only seen it the once, and I can't remember any specific moments, but I know the sound was ridiculously good. And what's got for sound? Complete Unknown, June Part 2, Emilia Perez, Wicked, Wild Robot. Well, 2 of them are musicals.
I need to see Wicked, apparently, because it's in film editing. I also need to see Maria in cinematography.
Maria is good, and I'm actually... I was on the thing, because I think Angelina Jolie's got the BAFTA nom for that, which is one of the reasons I went to see it. Maria is it's kind of exactly what you'd expect and fairly melodramatic and overblown, but it is very, very good. And I came out of it going, I genuinely very much enjoyed that. I watched it in a run of Baby Girl, A Real Pain, and Maria, and my favorite of them was Maria. A Real Pain is nice to see Kieran Culkin get it. I wasn't a massive fan of the movie, but he acted his socks off at the very least.
I watched the trailer for that, and it just doesn't look like my style, but it looks like it's a good film. And Kieran Culkin.
Yeah. It's good. It's not my thing, and it's kind of one of these, like, it's not like an oddball comedy, odd couple comedy kind of thing, comedy drama, and it's one of those ones where you're going to get more enjoyment out of it. You can appreciate it for what it is, whether you think the jokes land or not, but your kind of barely reaction to it is going to be whether the humor works, and it's not my style of humor. So it didn't work for me on that, but I still appreciate it. It was a very well made movie, even if it didn't land kind of gutturally, if that makes sense. But Kieran Culkin is very good in that movie. Jesse Eisenberg original screenplay was that he got for it. I don't know. I don't think so. Don't think you should have got it.
Again, I'm so pleased to see the Substance get original screenplay, and I do hope it pulls like a promising young woman and just coming out of nowhere and just taking it. The film that completely, the horror tinge film, it completely took people by surprise and just we can recognize kind of genuinely clever kind of ideas on the screenplay level. When they're not dramas.
Yes, we now have 7 horror movies in history nominated for Best Picture, and September 5, which is literally just the Argo version of Munich, as far as I can work out. That I think we get that in the next few weeks over here in February at some point in the UK. So there's a reason we haven't seen it. We haven't been able to. There's a reason we haven't been able to see Brutalist. We haven't been able to.
My last two shout-outs are Jaron Blaschke, who got nominated for Nosferatu previously for The Lighthouse. And my best name of any nominee is the brutalist cinematographer Lol Crawley. LOL Crawley.
Yeah. I'm very happy Wallace and Gromit has kept up its 100% Oscar nomination streak. We kind of knew it would do, but it's still nice to see a little weird British claymation kind of thing of an inventor and his dog still getting the noms after all these years. It's a bit ridiculous, and I'm very happy to see that Conclave is getting all the noms. I wasn't so taken. I can see why Isabella Rossellini has got it, but I kind of thought she was there, and it wasn't really a standout.
Can you believe that this is Isabella Rossellini's first Oscar nomination?
What else has she been in?
Well, Blue Velvet for a start.
Oh, was she? Okay. Like, I can see the fence, but I couldn't tell you what she'd been in. If that makes sense.
I was actually surprised by the number of nominations Conclave got. Obviously, great film, but I expect it to sweep at the BAFTAs. For that to be its kind of its kind of award show. But I thought it might get a bit lost in like the.
But it didn't get director.
Yeah.
Should have been over James Mangold.
Yeah, like again, I've heard literally. I've not even seen anybody mention on like any social media that a complete unknown has come out. Like absolutely.
I may be the only person.
Yeah, I mean, I knew it was out because I was checking the service to what to see.
Yeah, I don't think it's talking about the film itself. They're talking about what Timothée Chalamet is getting up to at the premiere events, basically.
Pretty much, yeah. It's so. I mean, for most of them, I can complain about them, but I can see why they're there.
It's a decent crop overall, I'd say.
Yeah, and for the most part, the films are actually decent. Better Man has got visual effects, Jacob. So
cool. Wow. It should have everything except for Chalamet. just copy paste. Get some AI to overwrite it because that's the hot new thing now.
You actually enjoyed that movie, didn't you?
And,
okay. Do we have final thoughts?
And Sebastian Stan was nominated for playing Donald Trump, so there is that.
I refuse to watch that movie. I don't care how good it is. I know it's critical.
I'm probably going to be watching it sometime this week. I have got it ready to go on streaming. More because I'm a big fan of the director, so I'm intrigued to see his take on things.
Kieran, final thoughts.
I should actually say well done to Nosferatu for getting all the stuff. It's like
it's one.
Getting all the noms. Yeah. We may get back to Nosferatu at some point. It was planned for last week, and then things happened. So we may redo it. We may not. But well done for horror for getting that, and then a third horror film in Alien Romulus getting a nom for visuals
for best AI.
AI Ian Romulus. So yeah, it's weird. I count at least 3 horror films on the list, which is vaguely impressive. And Maria's got cinematography nod as well. I can see why, but at the same time, I can't see why. It's enjoyable, but it's not like I remember the cinematography, which I know is what Roger Deakins would say is the point. You're not meant to remember the cinematography, despite the fact that every
you are if it's best though. If it's the best, you should remember it. Like,
well,
I don't remember Complete Unknowns.
Yeah. Roger Deakins' thing was that you shouldn't be going, "Oh, what a really cool shot," because it should just serve the story. You should meant to be so enthralled to be taken in by it that nothing actually a bit like editing in a way. If it's kind of overly done and drawing attention to itself, then it's kind of taking you out of the film because it's making you aware that it is a construct in if that makes sense.
I think we're able to fall more prey to that than the average person though.
Yeah. This is true, but sometimes you just go, "Oh, that's a beautiful shot," and you go, "Yeah, it's because Roger Deakins apparently doesn't have a style." Every single chance he gets, it's like 10 silhouettes, all of them. Every single time we get, like, put it this way, when I was making my third year film, we had a silhouette at one point, and in the edits, I named that file the Deacon shot. It's just ridiculous. It just looked like the jarhead silhouettes. Anyway, yeah.
Okay.
Congratulations to everyone nommed.
For David Lynch, do we want to start with something quintessential, or do we want to go chronologically? Because Kieran selected Dune, and
okay. Well, shall we start with the Oxford English Dictionary definition of Lynchian?
Yes.
Yes. Do a basic overview of David Lynch, perhaps.
Yeah. Yeah, so the Oxford English Dictionary defines Lynchian as characteristic, reminiscent, or imitative of the films or television work of David Lynch. Lynch is noted for juxtaposing surreal or sinister elements with mundane, everyday environments, and for using compelling visual images to emphasize a dreamlike quality of mystery and menace.
It's a great definition.
Lots of POV shots.
I think the only thing that's missing from that for me is possibly his sincerity. Because I do think, though he kind of, it's all about like digging into the dark underbelly of like suburbia and all that, I think kind of the way he deals with emotions and like what his characters are going through is always very kind of earnest, and it's like it's big-hearted, and it's just I don't think there's any cynicism in that, and how he kind of portrays people, and he's a big fan of like kind of love conquers all kind of romantic kind of angle on things, no matter how twisted and dark things get as well.
I think his classic Americana contributes to that feeling, because you can tell that there's a love for the jazz and the coffee and the diners.
And
yeah. I mean, it's like an old. It's almost like a man from another time, isn't he? Like his old timey aesthetic and love for the classic things and everything. And amazingly, despite his love for all that kind of this bygone era that may or may not have ever existed, he wasn't a bigot, which is amazing, really. A lot of similar men in similar love for things would have held some quite dodgy views, but not him. So good on him for always defending the outsider, celebrating the weird and wonderful.
What he said.
For Lynch's background, I mean, he started as a visual artist and painting, the traditional art forms, but then picked up a camera, and that's where he ended up making Eraserhead, like during and I think after his time at art school. And the cool thing is he continued making traditional art too, and if you ever get the chance, watch David Lynch, The Art Life, and it's just such great insight into his perspective on the world, his perspective on life, and his approach to art especially.
I would also recommend another Lynch documentary, a more recent one that I watched earlier today, actually, which was Lynch/Oz, which was about his kind of preoccupation with the Wizard of Oz and its iconography, like throughout his kind of career. And basically, it's a series of like shorter essays by other filmmakers who are big fans of Lynch's work. So you've got Karen Kusama, you've got David Lowery, you've got Benson Moorhead, and a few others. It's there's some really interesting perspectives and like the examples they pick from his filmography and like from their own work. It's an interesting tapestry and kind of an interesting insight into kind of probably one of his. He's admitted one of his favorite films, but also probably one of his biggest influences on his kind of work in general. So, that's one's worth seeking out.
Yeah. And to be honest, I think there must have been a thing in the air around that era of people working
cigarette
in
smoke.
Of people that kind of start off in other art forms. Then with kind of, I'm not going to use the term classical training of art. So you know what I mean. So Kubrick obviously started in photography. Ridley Scott went to art school before going into commercials, and there must have been something in the air. Apparently, also Stanley Kubrick called David Lynch up at one point and said Eraserhead's one of my favorite films ever, and David Lynch was like, I can go now. That's it. I can check out at this point. I've done 2 films. That's all I need. Like, don't need anything else. And like weird stuff like even things like Eraserhead, wasn't an immediate thing. It was like in development hell for years and years. Like one of the people that helped bail him out financially was Sissy Spacek. Like,
well,
this is the world we're in.
Basically, it got off the ground. It's not like he couldn't get it started, but it was just getting it finished. I think didn't take about 6 years, all told, to actually, from the camera's first starting rolling, they just have to keep stop starting, and poor Jack Nance had to keep that hairstyle for the whole kind of time of making it.
Yeah, it reminds me a bit of like Evil Dead, where they filmed kind of the bit in the actual cabin, and then about 6 to 8 months later, they then have to film all the stuff in the cellar because the cabin they're in doesn't have a cellar, which is kind of fundamental to the plot. So they then had to like change bits of everything because they all changed slightly, and kind of the prop they had for like the little jewel like mirror thing was going to be a more important prop, but they lost it when they came to film all the other stuff. So they found a bit and painted it, but then didn't use it as much. So yeah, weird stuff happens when you're making these things. And the first ones take ages to get off. Is it Nightcrawler that it took the guy about 10 years to get the script greenlit?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
The Matrix took 5 years, so when you're just starting out, it can take a while.
All right, are we starting Lynchian, or are we doing Lynchian sci-fi?
It is up to you. Bearing in mind, I am not the Lynch head.
No, I mean, let's go roughly chronological. But we'll just say, so we did Eraserhead, which this weird and wonderful. I mean, Eraserhead, it's the nightmare of having a young child, basically, isn't it? And just the waking nightmare of that, and kind of going to the extremes. And I've only seen it the once, and I remember at the time thinking, "Wow, that was great! I can't wait to never watch that
again."
Oh, it just
there are certain films that do that. Like Requiem for a Dream is another one. Martyrs is another one. You're just like, "This is great. I am never going to watch it again in my life."
The next one he did was Elephant Man, which in my Where to Start with David Lynch, that's where I said to start, because it's black and white. It's the story of that deformed dude. I forgot his name.
Joseph Merrick.
Thank you. And it has Anthony Hopkins
and John Hurt.
It does. Has Anthony Hopkins doing a beautiful tear rolling down his cheek on cue. I mean, I would say Elephant Man is probably one of his more conventional films, although it's still got some kind of trippy kind of dream imagery in it here and there. But it's essentially like a biopic, like a gritty biopic of like a real figure. But that's the one that kind of where his empathy really comes through, for the outcast in society and everything. I think it's a really kind of emotional, big-hearted film. It's possibly my favourite of his. I'm not saying it's his greatest one, but it's probably the one I've gone back to the most over the years, and I can easily just watch it time and time again. I think it's always found it quite powerful.
So those two movies are weird.
And somehow, considering we're talking about the Oscars, Elephant Man got 8 Oscar noms, tying with Raging Bull. So it got nominated for Best Picture, Actor for John Hurt, Set Decoration, Costume, Director, Editing, Music, and Screenplay. Now adapted. Didn't win any.
Bizarrely produced. The project originated and was still produced by Mel Brooks. He was shopping the script around for ages until he found Lynch.
The weird ones. Do you want to know the most obscure, random, and pointless, nobody cares fact about Joseph Merrick, the Elephant Man?
Yes.
His descendant is one of his descendants started the Pokemon site Cerebi.
Oh wow.
Okay.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. So any Pokemon fans will know that when you're looking stuff up, you essentially go to Bulbapedia or Cerebi, and the guy who started Cerebi is descendant of
Cerebi's better.
It is.
All right.
So, yeah.
So after he made those two weird movies, George Lucas came to him and said, "Hey, want to make Return of the Jedi?" And he said, "No."
Yeah. And then people came to him and went, "Hey, we're doing another big sci-fi movie that we can't really get off the ground. Do you want to do that?" And he went, "Okay."
You got to do your Dino De Laurentiis impression.
But fortunately, it's Dune, so he was able to make it weird. It's just when you're making Dune, as we have now seen, Kira, talk to us about Dune.
I like the fact that
1984.
he was like the fourth director they obviously came to, and obviously development hell for Dune is well known. Whole documentaries have been made on the failed versions of Dune, you know. Not this one, even though many consider this to be a failed version of Dune. So Jodorowsky tried to make it with trippy stuff, and that didn't quite work, although H.R. Giger obviously did some designs for that, which is ironic because he then goes to work with Ridley Scott. And then Ridley Scott also gets tagged because he'd just done big sci-fi movies to do Dune and doesn't do it. Despite that, they reused some of Giger's designs in Prometheus, which was then directed by Ridley Scott. So it's weird, like, you know, the stuff that they could have made in one project, they just went, can we just make that for another one? So the big in Prometheus, the big kind of like pyramid kind of thing with the skull on the top that they go into was meant to be originally worked. I think it's for the Harkonnen or Harkonnen Castle, depending on which side of the US UK divide you're on.
Maybe it's an American Canadian thing, since Villeneuve is French Canadian.
Harkonnen versus Harkonnen.
Yeah,
Harkonnen sounds definitely more Shakespearean. Harkonnen. It's the Patrick Stewart version. Yeah, so you get
it's so weird that he's in this movie.
Bits like that. Although, despite the fact that obviously it was a completely different production designer for Dune, whose name I have now obviously lost. There are still weird kind of things that you can kind of see Giger-esque kind of bits floating around, but maybe that's also because like Lynch was a slightly weird dude as well, and a surrealist as well, and obviously, you know, Giger was a surrealist.
I mean, the Navigator, I think, is very both Giger-esque and Lynchian. You know, I think it's very much in both their wheelhouses. You know, like this thing of pure nightmares just there because it's weird and striking image.
The movie,
I can't actually remember them in the book.
The movie opens like in a dream in space, like it's so weird.
Dream exposition.
My only real, like, obviously it's not the best movie in the world, but I hate Kyle MacLachlan as Paul Atreides personally.
It's not great.
I love Kyle MacLachlan, not here.
Yeah. As we've seen with Denis Villeneuve's two-parters, which probably come to about 5 hours in total, and miss lots of stuff out. Trying to shove Dune into just over 2 hours is you're kind of just explaining the plot line for most of it. You can't really do much else.
No. Yeah, because there's some kind of quite arresting images and some nice kind of bits of weirdness in it, everything like that in it. But yeah, it doesn't work if it's literally, there are a lot of inner monologues on the page. Let's just literally have them playing on screen. You know.
I mean, there's some interesting things about Dune structurally, because it is a mammoth kind of, or a fairly decent word count. And this is in 1965. This is, I don't know if it's Herbert's first novel, but it's the one that made him, and he did lots more after. So it's not kind of, you know, if it wasn't his first, then it's fairly early on in his career at the very least. I'm trying to look, 1963. Yeah, considering he went on right to the 80s, he did some standalone stuff, but like 3 or 4. So it's still like a mammoth task for anyone that's only got a couple of novels under the belt. So he'll do a couple of things. One of them is that instead of kind of having chapters, well, he kind of has them. But every time he does that, he has an excerpt from one of the kind of later kind of biographies that one of the characters will write. The Princess Irulan, the Manual of Muad'Dib, and will eventually kind of be a character that's being a great scholar of this time because she's descended from the Empress, who you see at the beginning. That's who that character is. And he essentially uses that so that he can fill in various bits of information that he doesn't have time for. Those are the exposition, and he hides it by it being like excerpts from a found text, like years afterwards, if that makes sense. And there's your little bits of exposition to feed in. And he also does this thing where he jumps into various characters' kind of inner monologues in the same scene, and normally you don't do that. You keep it from one character's point of view pretty much. If you're going to have internal thoughts in monologues, you have it from the one character. Jumping between everyone just completely like throws people off. Herbert manages to pull that off just through sheer skill, and I think just like balls, if nothing else. You then try translating all that to the screen. And
I love it. It's so funny.
Well, the trouble is that all this means that you can... It's a fairly lengthy novel as it is, but you can pack even more information into it because you've found shortcuts of shoving it in. The trouble with a film is that you have a certain length of time, and it's very hard to do the same kind of things unless you're trying to do it visually. But there's so much exposition that you need to get across in order for everything to make sense, because it's densely plotted and there's loads of galaxies and planets and different peoples and political stuff going on, and it's all mishmash. It is virtually impossible to do it in just over like 2 hours. It's what, 2 hours 10, 2 hours 15 with credits, stuff like that. And have it cohere in any kind of sense without just skipping through half of it at like an absolute breakneck speed. And so you just end up with essentially Lynch throwing some images on the screen and trying to have the characters describe what's going on. And it's just like his style doesn't work for what the screenplay demands. And it's just really annoying because there's some stuff which is really good, and there's some stuff which is like, what the hell is going on here? We're just going to skip through like 100 pages in about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Kieran, I want to know what you think is really good in 1984 Dune.
I thought you were about to say 1984. That's a completely different issue. I could have gone after that. I mean,
Sting in his metallic pants.
I do like Patrick Stewart. Like Patrick Stewart does a good Gurney Halleck.
Yeah, he's a good shout. Yeah,
it's good. And then some of like the sets and things like that, and you know, when you get kind of the matte paintings and everything going right, it does look good. It's about on par with what Star Wars and everything like that are doing at the time. You do see some influences, again, still from Scott, because even though he's not directing it, all the Harkonnen kind of outfits look like Roy Batty's collar from Blade Runner. It's ridiculous. Yeah. It's like, oh my God, this is just exactly the same costumes. And some weird stuff like that. Obviously, the Navigator looks good. And then you do get the odd bits where kind of from a distance, some of the spectacle looks decent, considering this is like being shot in 83. Visual effects are not going to be the greatest, and you're trying to essentially sci-fi Lord of the Rings up on screen.
It doesn't look quite as good as Star Wars to me, but it's the like next tier below it. And part of that's because the sort of design of the worlds is like older and lived in is similar.
Yeah. And yeah, they're trying the best with what they have, and I think there's quite a bit of producer interference. Again, this is essentially the third attempt to do it.
I mean, this is the one and only time Lynch did basically a studio movie. for that reason, you know, he just I think he lost it with Suits, you know, on his set, you know, just trying to rein him in and stuff.
Yeah, it's there's some good points. I have said before that I love the character of Alia, who we actually get in this one. That Denis Villeneuve decided to have as about 2 shots of Anya Taylor-Joy and a couple of whispers. And probably the reason for that is she works better on the page than on screen, because here she's not great, because you're trying to get essentially a 7-year-old to try and sound menacing like a 50-year-old, essentially retained knowledge of generations and generations of psychic women from beyond the stars. It's really hard to do, and it was never going to work unless you find the exact right child to do it.
The design of the sandworms in this is iconic. I think. I mean, I think Denis did a good job of like making his kind of design kind of its own thing. But I think there's a reason why people remember it looking like this. You know, I think it does. Those scenes kind of are really memorable for a reason.
With the 3 opening sections of the mouth. That I think Tim Burton probably. Is Beetlejuice or whatever that essentially the same thing?
Beetlejuice, you nicked that. Well, I think he'd probably call it a homage, but yeah, he nicked that.
Yes, that's a straight stealage. And so there's like weird things where, you know, I mean, God bless him for putting the amount of effort in. I've seen sort of 10 minutes of it, like a behind the scenes making of Dune from 1984. It's on YouTube, like ripped from a VHS that's scratched and dying, so it sounds like the narrator's using the voice all the time. It's quite funny. But like for some of the battle scenes, because obviously they needed vast expanses of desert, they went, yeah, let's get a load of people to clear all the shrubs around, because we need it for like miles and miles of space. So they just got like a whole team of people to spend like 3 months just clearing like 20 square miles of desert, all these shrubs and weeds, and spent like 3 months doing that in like 110, 120 degrees Fahrenheit heat. It's ridiculous. So God bless them for putting all that effort in and having like 2,000 kind of Mexican soldier extras in for all the fight scenes and stuff. But yeah, I think when the matte paintings work and you get those moments, it's really great. And Lynch obviously throws in his kind of weird dream visual kind of montage fadings whenever he can. Not sure about like the burn effect kind of things for like seeing across space. But yeah, and also at the end, Herbert didn't really like, because suddenly it starts raining. Right. There's 1,000 things wrong with the rain coming in. 1, what the hell? 2, this suggests that Paul has new powers that in never any other version of it, and all the other books. That 3, and let me see if I can find the quote from Herbert. Admittedly, I'm nicking this from Wiki. So yeah. Also, Harlan Ellison. The Harlan Ellison, one of the greatest sci-fi writers of all time, reckoned it was fairly homophobic, because he reckoned that the Baron's presentation was kind of like making fun of gay men, and saying, isn't this weird that we've got somebody that's meant to be almost like a gay man and he's full of diseases and stuff, when we've got AIDS just starting to kick around and stuff like that. So there's that bit as well. But then Frank Herbert had an issue. I think it's Frank Herbert, and now I can't obviously find the quote. But he essentially said that he didn't like the ending, because the whole point was that Paul was a man that was like a god, and it was essentially playing God. And as people have pointed out, the whole point of Villeneuve's Dune Part 2 is that it's a portrait of a man that has power, that really should not be trusted with that power, or should have it to a certain extent, and then taken off him very, very quickly before he goes too far. By making the rainfall, that is literally saying Paul is a god, in which case he can do no wrong, which case, like, the whole meaning of the whole jihad, which goes on, yes, that is the term that's used, is completely changed by that ending. Also, rain? Really? Like, what? Where the hell has this come from? Like, the whole system, like, I mean, and in the book there's whole kind of maps. I think there's originally like appendixes for kind of like the biology and the biosphere of Dune, because the I can't remember the guy they met that's studying with the Fremen. In the book, he's trying to like study the ecology and biology in order to start.
Dr. Kynes, isn't it? Leonard Kynes.
Is it Kynes? No, Leonard Kynes is the guy who betrays them, isn't it?
No, you're thinking of Dr. Yue.
Yes, I am. Sorry, it is Leonard Kynes. I was right, and then I changed my mind. Yeah. There's too many names. Certain names I've got down.
Who is bizarrely played by Brad Dourif in this?
Yes, it's Chucky, or Wormtongue. Yeah, so like there's whole things of him trying to change the ecology and that kind of stuff, which just goes because you don't have the time. Because we have about 10 minutes and suddenly Paul is leading the Fremen. Okay, in 10 minutes, essentially.
Yeah. They basically cut
probably
out
about actual time, not just screen time as well.
They cut out probably a quarter of the book by doing that, don't they?
Yes, in order to just
all this time kind of integrate into their society and learn their ways and everything. It's just just skip all that. Not so like it's an important part of his character or anything.
Yeah, him and Chani are screwing within about 3 seconds of knowing each other, and about 2 scenes together. And this is meant to be a deep kind of romantic relationship that's gone on, essentially predicted from beyond the stars. It's just like this is just not right. And if you'd have made it today, you'd have got Denis Villeneuve to do it. But if this specific version was done today, you'd have gone, okay, you've got 3 hours, 3.5 hours. And we've got the precedent for that. All the Lord of the Rings movies are that length.
Brutalist.
Brutalist, Batman, Godfather. People are seeing well-received films that are of that length. Go make it that length. You may have to slim the budget down for other scenes and make them more intimate rather than big scale, but go make it 3 hours. The trouble with this is that the 2 hours just isn't long enough. And you know me, I don't like a movie to go on for longer than it has to, but here it needs the length because it is Lord of the Rings in space, essentially. And you have to have that.
And I would have imagined that a lot of that stuff would have been a lot of that in some stage of the scripting, but obviously cut for various reasons.
Apparently there were a load of scenes that were cut.
Famously, David Lynch lost it with a producer on the set of Twin Peaks who kept interfering and saying, "Come speed up, we need to do this today, we need to do that today." And he rounds on him and says, "Who cares how long a scene is?"
A scene is as long as a scene needs to be. It's I'm not the massive David Lynch person, but I agree with him. I think he tried his best, and you can see there's some artistic stuff trying to seep through, and then there's people trying to cut it down. Essentially, I think almost trying to make it Star Wars. And let's be fair, this wouldn't have been pushed through as hard as it was if Star Wars hadn't taken off. So it's trying to cash in on that, but. Yeah, it just
just as Flash Gordon was about the same time. They're both obviously they're both pre-existing properties. They both existed before Star Wars, but the reason the films came out at that point was purely to cash in on Star Wars.
Alien cashed in on Star Wars. Star Crash, which is a weird one, it was a cash in. They were all Star Wars cash-ins, and this is the one that kind of. There's stuff in there. People are now weirdly, in retrospective, calling it like a forgotten masterpiece. It's like. No, it could have been very good, but it wasn't. I love the book. I love Patrick Stewart and sci-fi and space opera, but I can't defend this one more.
The blue, the special edition Blu-ray wasn't released by Criterion; it was released by Arrow. So that tells you all you need to know. As much as I love a lot of the Arrow back catalogue, they specialize in a certain kind of trash.
This is one. This is the one that got away, but that doesn't mean that the actual finished product is stellar in any way. There are moments and glimpses, but it is not the greatest in the world. So it's just about passable. And there will be people that have deep emotional attachments to it, but objectively, from a pure craft point of view. It's not great.
No.
So, which one of you watched Blue Velvet for this?
I also watched Blue Velvet, thinking that Sam was watching it, and he did Lost Highway instead, which I haven't seen.
we'll say Blue Velvet obviously was basically Lynch's kind of decompressing a bit after his miserable experience on Dune, I think, and getting back onto kind of doing something a project he was really passionate about, and got to have kind of his way or the highway, basically.
I will say it says something about Lynch that when Spielberg was kind of depressed out of his mind in like the 2000s and doing things like Memories of a Geisha, he went and did The Terminal for something happy. When David Lynch is depressed out of his mind from doing Dune, he goes and makes Blue Velvet. There's something about it. It's like, oh, I'm really depressed. I need something like personal to make me lighten up. I know what I'll do.
I mean, I would say probably Blue Velvet is one of the iconic kind of Lynch movies. I think it just sums him up as an artistic force, and I think if you want to get what he's about, as like a filmmaker, I think this is one of the kind of standout works to go for.
I think it's the entry level David Lynch, where Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me is like you're doing your advanced degree.
Yeah. I mean, I saw it must have been about 5 years ago now. I saw a screening of this at the Prince Charles Cinema in London. It's very famous, like very old kind of cinema right off Leicester Square.
I can confirm it has not been changed to the King Charles Cinema now.
No, it hasn't. No,
still Prince Charles.
This is cinema where every summer they put a sign out in the foyer saying "Sod the sun, come sit in the dark." But yes, so and I watched this, and I was in a room full of quite a few students, I presume film students. But what I find fascinating about it is, I think people of a certain age, certain generation, seeing Lynch now, kind of in this kind of age of irony and kind of guilty pleasures and everything like that. There was a lot of laughter, and I know Lynch can be funny, and there are purposefully funny moments in a lot of his films. But they're laughing at throughout this at like some quite harrowing scenes. They're just because it's like.
Are they laughing at
Dennis Hopper?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it's always like a nervous laughter almost, but it's like because Lynch, I think firstly, his reality is a bit heightened, so he directs his actors to kind of. No one does a naturalistic performance in a.
I was going to say, I would say very quickly about Dune. This is a comment I forgot to make, but like Patrick Stewart is the only one that talks at a normal speed and not at like 50% speed. Everyone else talks like this and really slowly. But heightened reality is definitely something that's going on here. And to be honest, I do think, and this is something I've said anyway, that dialogue is always dodgy for that. Because dialogue, if it's meant to be angry, can make something unnecessarily funny. This is why I think that in the nicest way, the US can't really do creepy ghost girls very well. Because they always make them talk too much. Whereas something like the original Ring, you just have pure hatred. Whereas Samara's just like, can I see my mommy? It's just, oh, shut up. So I wonder what would have happened if you'd essentially... Like, if you do Dennis Hopper's entire thing again, but without the dialogue and just, like, the aggression and just the facial, it was a silent scene, if you'd get that same laughter.
Yeah, I mean, this is obviously their second and much more successful collaboration between Lynch and Carl McLachlan, and obviously the first of many collaborations with Laura Dern as well. I mean, he had like a stable of kind of regular collaborators. They just went back to time again. They obviously had a very fruitful kind of working relationship.
Well, but before we hit Twin Peaks, Sam, tell us about Wild at Heart, because I know you watched that.
I do want to very quickly say with the Blue Velvet that it started off a trend that I saw someone comment on Blue Sky, which is that for David Lynch, you can do anything weird and dark you like as long as somebody's trying to solve a murder at the same time. And there seems to be a trend that then goes on.
Also, another great kind of trope of a lot of his films. It's you got to have someone lip syncing, to a song from the 50s.
Yep.
Yes. I mean that is one of my favorite. I say Blue Velvet. I really like it. I don't think it's exactly top couple of David Lynch films for me, but it's very good. But unironically, I love the just the creepy beauty of the of Dean Stockwell, miming on to Roy Orbison as Hobbs Frank has a bit of a breakdown behind him. Yeah, it's great seeing that. Yeah, so Wild at Heart is a second collaboration with Laura Dern and with Nicolas Cage, and the only collaboration. You'd think he'd be an actor; they'd be made for each other, wouldn't you? Lynch and Cage, just both operating in their own little level of reality.
Are they too similar to work though?
Possibly, yeah. But essentially, you have Laura Dern and Nicolas Cage, sort of like a Bonnie and Clyde story, really. A couple of young kids in love on the run, and getting involved with like some unsavory types. Lots of Elvis music. Again, Nicolas Cage kind of spontaneously breaking into Elvis performances, whether the scene needs it or not.
So it's Lilo and Stitch. Lots of Elvis. Sorry.
Yeah. You have more direct references to Wizard of Oz than probably any other David Lynch film. Literally having the wicked witch appearing in hallucination and the good witch floating down in a bubble to speak to Nicolas Cage at the end, as he basically realised, he's going to go back home and kind of rekindle his relationship with Laura Dern.
Is that why there's a pug in Dune? It's meant to be Toto.
Possibly, yeah.
Just before they travel to Arrakis, and they arrive there, and he's not in Kansas anymore. Sorry, I don't get the pug. Hey, Daddy. Sorry.
The Wild at Heart is fun and weird, but then he makes Twin Peaks, which might be his biggest thing.
Yeah. So sorry, just gonna say one more thing. In Wild at Heart, they Diane Ladd plays Laura Dern's character's mum, and she's her mum in real life, and she plays one of the all-time terrifying crazy mums. It's great, just to the extent of just painting her entire face in lipstick. And there's again nice little Wizard of Oz reference when Laura Dern realizes, that's it, we're done. I don't need you in my life anymore. She chucks a drink at a picture of her mum, and it basically melts off the frame, and disappears. Fletch disappears. So, But yeah, so he made Wild at Heart and the first season Twin Peaks, or at least the pilot, I think, back to back.
Yeah, and the pilot's very long, or there's an extended version at least, but it is the weirdest show to ever be on American broadcast television, easily.
Yeah, and it's amazing that it was such a kind of appointment viewing, because, as you say, it's so weird, such a weird mishmash of elements. I mean, the classic kind of whodunit, but like a kind of corny kind of soap opera and melodrama, and then some really weird metaphysical kind of horror, and frequent kind of diversions into complete surrealism. But people captured the hearts and minds of a nation, and until we got to season 2 anyway, and we worked out who killed Laura Palmer, and then people lost interest.
Well, you can go listen to our episode on Firewalk with me. I like that movie, and then obviously The Return in 2017.
Yeah, which was voted the best film of the century by Sight and Sound. The full season of Twin Peaks: The Return is the best film of the century. So,
when everyone's complaining that TV is becoming too much like cinema, apparently Sight and Sound can't. Signed and Sound? Apparently they can't distinguish between one and the other. Weird, huh?
Yeah, and then finally he got back into normal films that aren't spin-offs of his TV show, but darker.
Films.
Oh, sorry, yeah. Normal for David Lynch. Sam, what did he make next?
Dune might be his most normal film.
God. I think we're going to come to his most normal film later, but Lost Highway. Lost Highway is not his most normal film. I mean, I first saw this at uni. In fact, I saw both this and Blue Velvet in quick succession at uni, and this one I did not get on with at all. You know, but I've revisited it, and I still don't understand it, but I don't think he meant to understand it, so it doesn't really. It bothers me less this time.
Admittedly, Lynch has been on record for one saying that, you know, life doesn't make sense, so why do films?
Yeah.
But then he's also been on record going that he prefers pictures over words because words fix meaning down. And I'm here going, yeah, all us linguist theorists are going, words definitely do not fix meaning down in any way, shape, or form.
And he says like the most agonizing part of the filmmaker process is when the film's out there and people ask you to try and explain it to them.
Yeah. What's the thing from him? Somebody asked him in an interview, it's like, he goes, I consider Eraserhead my most spiritual film. It's like, would you care to elaborate on that?
Elaborate on that? No. Yeah, that was a British journalist. I can't remember which one. There was also, I saw a clip earlier on of a youngish Mark Kermode. It might have been talking about Lost Highway, I think, but he basically went off a big tangent and kind of said, something like, I know you don't like nail down the meanings of your films, but I see this bit of the film as this, and this, and he went off a big rant, and he said, am I in the right ballpark? And it just says, not really.
Beautiful.
Yeah, but yeah, if you want to try to describe the plot of Lost Highway,
you get lost?
Try.
Jazz musician played by Bill Pullman, and his wife Renee, played by Patricia Arquette. They're going through some marital troubles, and they become disturbed when videotapes are left outside their house, showing someone is getting into their house at night to film them while they sleep. They meet a stranger at a party who can seemingly be in two places at once. Following that, Fred blacks out, apparently murdering Renee during the blackout, and then he spontaneously morphs into an entirely different man overnight while he's waiting his execution. And then that second man, who's a car mechanic, gets involved with the girlfriend of the local gangster, and time loopy shenanigans.
Both played by Patricia Arquette, by the way. The two female.
Yes, both played, but both main film characters, both by Patricia Arquette. Yeah, and along the way, there's lots of time loop shenanigans and a lot of sex scenes. That's pretty much it.
It must be said, I am actually surprised that David Lynch never teamed up with David Cronenberg in any way.
I think it is 90s stuff, especially. I think kind of both the 90s kind of stuff, kind of it's off a piece. Yeah.
You mentioned the sex scenes. I like the sax scenes personally.
Yes, yeah. Which Bill Pullman
sax and violence in these.
Bill Pullman learned those for real. You know, he's never picked up a saxophone before this, but he did like an intensive course just so he could do that sick solo. I mean, I was watching this kind of quite late at night on like a small TV in my room, and it's quite a mumbly film. You know, I was thinking, well, I think I'm probably gonna have to turn the subtitles on just so I don't miss what few clues there are in this. And one of my favorite sights was seeing we're about to go inside the jazz bar, and you just see outside with the sign and about to go in the door, and the subtitles just says jazz. Just thank you, subtitles.
Yep. Well, you know, you couldn't do that for the cantina scene for Star Wars, because that type of music is genuinely called jizz.
Yes, it is.
That is genuinely type music in Star Wars. Anyway.
Yeah, so there's a really kind of intriguing setup. Basically, it opens with Bill Pullman waking up when he hears like the buzzer, you know, is in his comm going. So he goes to it and just hears a voice outside just saying, it just says, "Dick Laurent is dead." And he goes outside and there's no one there. So it's like straight off thinking, who's Dick Laurent? Who's killed him? What's going on?
So once again, you can do what you want as long as you're investigating a murder at the same time.
Exactly. Yeah. There's a line in it about how he hates Fred hates video cameras, and that apparently is an opinion shared by David Lynch. There's this quote from Fred. He says, "I like to remember things my own way, how I remember them, not necessarily how they happened." And I don't think David Lynch ever really kind of. Obviously, he was a filmmaker, a very prolific filmmaker. He still preferred kind of, you know, remembering things his own way, and mistrusted kind of any kind of technological advance. Although obviously he did kind of get into social media in his way in his last few years.
And he shot Inland Empire on a digital camera.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and that's obviously it's going even more experimental for him, wasn't it? It's on a stylistic level. He's got a great. He does like his kind of sinister, kind of weirdo characters. Who never really explained, but they're like a malicious external force who kind of vaguely manipulating events, throughout. So this one's got a great one of those. He's just called the Mystery Man, played by Robert Blake, and he looks a bit like Bela Lugosi. He's got no eyebrows, a lot of white makeup on his face, and a great line in kind of sinister smiling. The party scene, he meets, he comes up to Fred and says, "We've met before, haven't we?" And Fred goes, "No, I don't think so." And then he hands him like an old-fashioned cell phone and says, "Call your house." And the mystery man answers at the other end. So he's, which again is kind of a great little kind of surreal kind of mystery kind of twist. I mean, all his kind of films they always look great. They're just most of his shots you could just hang on a gallery wall. They're just so well composed, and just and then these like jolts of kind of general like nightmare fuel kind of imagery, kind of breaking up like the beauty. But I think his films kind of work better kind of if you just accept you're not going to understand everything. You're not meant to form your opinion about what's real, what isn't, kind of what it's all meant to mean, and just go with it. Just go with the vibes, go with the mood of it. Because I think probably the most logical way, if you're going to impose logic on it, the most logical way of explaining this is basically Fred does kill his wife, and then he kind of, to save his sanity, kind of splits off into another personality. It's not literally another man. He's just operating on that level. Then that's another aspect of his personality. He's just using to preserve his sanity, because by the end of it Fred comes back. Once he's kind of come to terms with what he's done, he's back for like the final couple of scenes, where he meets the mystery man again, who may or may not be the devil, or maybe like part of his conscience or something else.
Who knows? Who cares?
That's how I kind of read it, if you have to read it away. But generally, it's a good looking, good sounding, well performed, weird little film. But it's got a great a death where a guy falls onto the corner of a glass table and basically slices his head in half. That's fun.
So it's a falling version of the decapitation from The Omen.
Pretty much, yeah. And then you got Robert Loggia as the main gangster character, and Mr. Eddie, who apparently was originally lobbied for the role of Frank in Blue Velvet, but Lynch at the time didn't think he was right. So says, I really want Dennis Hopper for this, but I'll keep you in mind for future. And he basically wrote this role for him. And you kind of expect like your big gangster, to have like a big moment of like, horrible violence and just showing them people who's boss stuff. But funny thing about this is Mr. Eddie absolutely loses it over like a minor traffic violation. Basically, he's been tailgated by a guy on a road, and he just runs him off the road, drags him out of the car, and beats the crap out of him just for driving like a bit of a dick, basically.
I'm walking here.
Yeah. I saw this, which I found kind of weird. In 2002, David Lynch said he'd only recently realised what subconsciously inspired the film, and it was the O.J. Simpson trial. Lynch said that the trial was a major influence in his mind during the stage of writing the script, which deals with a man who was accused of killing his wife. And curiously enough, Lynch cast Robert Blake to play the mystery man, who was a major character in the film. And several years later, Blake was put on trial for killing his own wife. So, yeah.
I wasn't going to bring it up, but...
No, but yeah, he didn't act again after that.
Really?
And he died in 2023 at the age of 89.
Yeah. So it's a frustrating film to an extent, but I think as long as you don't care, it's not going to be explained. Just go with the weirdness and kind of enjoy kind of it for what it is. It's kind of is worth seeing. Famously, Roger Ebert wasn't a David Lynch fan. I mean, he gave quite negative reviews to several of his films, notably Blue Velvet. But also this, both him and Siskel gave very negative reviews. So in response, David Lynch put out some new marketing with their quotes. 2 thumbs down. And he said it was 2 more reasons to see Lost Highway. To which Siskel responded, "Well, I found that quite petty."
Yep. A thought came through my mind, and I can't remember what it was. I can't remember which filmmaker it was. Somebody gave him a bad review, and then in the next film they named a character after them.
Well,
it might have been Lynch.
That in the Emmerich Godzilla, there's Mayor Ebert and assistant DA Siskel, isn't there? So
it wasn't that, but yeah,
that was probably Emmerich in response to one of reviews one of his films, I think. Yeah. So following Lost Highway, we get to his a couple of years later. We get to his most conventional film by quite a way, which is The Straight Story, which was a Disney financed little indie drama about an old man on his tractor going across the country to see his brother. And it's a lovely film. You don't think maybe David Lynch's stuff could be described as lovely, but this is a lovely film.
The name says it all.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, literally just no nonsense, just A to B, just yeah. I mean,
and guess who? According to Wikipedia, guess who very much praised it?
Was it
Roger Ebert?
It was indeed. It's almost like Ebert just has a thing against kind of dark, vaguely horror-related things.
Funny thing about Ebert, famously was not a prude. Generally didn't object to like extreme sex stuff. I think it was violence more often that he kind of. Or what he deemed as sadistic violence, he objected to.
He was somebody
corrupting kind of violence.
He was somebody that kind of the film kind of has to be good enough to merit the violence, if that makes sense. So he really wasn't a horror movie fan, but he very much did praise Halloween because he thought the suspense parts of that were incredibly effective. So the violence coming after it is kind of paid off because you had all that suspense building up.
Yeah. I would say I'll recommend Straight Story just for one, basically the final scene, which is just Richard Farnsworth as Alvin Straight, I think the character's called. Finally gets to his brother, who's been ill for some time and lives out on his own, and it's just the two of his brother, played by Barradeen Stanton, another regular Lynch collaborator. And basically both of them just sitting out on his porch, not really saying a lot, just staring out and just grunting kind of. They might as well be screaming from the rooftops how much they love each other, but they're not going to say it because they're gruff men of a certain age, But it's kind of a nice little kind of low key emotional. Kind of
we'll say in this the Straight Story, Rose Straight played by Sissy Spacek, who helped fund Elephant Man. So we're doing a thank you for that. Come be in my movie.
She seems like another one you'd think would have done more stuff on camera with David Lynch over the years. But...
Speaking of the Harry Dean Stanton, I would like to see David Lynch's Paris, Texas.
Yes, that would have been an interesting one, wouldn't it? Yeah.
Oh, maybe on the other side. I'll transcendental meditate that into existence. But after that was, I don't know, maybe what's considered his best film.
I would say Elephant Man is my favorite, but I would not disagree with that at all. I'd say Mulholland Drive is his greatest. It's kind of most. It's got the most layers of any of his films. I think
At the very least, I think it's someone where somebody ranks them all and puts Mulholland Drive first. You might not agree with it, but you can see why it's there, kind of thing.
I forgot about the Straight Story. So when you said it's most conventional, I was like, hey, in a way, it's a bit, but no, it's not at all. He was nominated for Best Director for it. So, but yeah, it's sort of the culmination of he makes Blue Velvet, he makes Twin Peaks, he makes Lost Highway, and Mulholland Drive is another neo-noir mystery. But instead of a murder, it's there's a woman in a car wreck, and she wanders off to an apartment, hides in there, and then Naomi Watts comes, a plucky girl from Canada, staying with her aunt in L.A. or at her place, and she doesn't know who this strange woman is, but the pair are determined to discover her identity. And then along the way, there's all these little vignettes that don't make sense, and there's a whole plot revolving around the casting of a film, and the director, I forget the actor's name, but Adam Kirscher.
Justin Theroux.
Yes, Justin Theroux. And it's one that you really got to piece together a bit more, although at the very end it does explain it pretty well.
Another sinister kind of external threat, in the form of the cowboy.
Yeah, the cowboy. But for me, the key scene in Mulholland Drive is the one everybody remembers, which is in the Winkies, where the man tells the story of his dream that they were sitting in this Winkies, and you were right over there. And then we went out back, and there was this face. It was the most horrifying face I've ever seen. And then that exact scene plays out, and he goes into the alley, sees it, passes out. Yeah. And for me, that is the key to what this movie is. This movie is, I had a dream about something, and it turns out the darkest aspects of that reality are true for this character.
Yeah, I mean, it's the most consistent kind of, as well as kind of like the kind of the darkness behind like idealistic kind of suburbia. I think dreams and exploration of dreams and kind of what they are, how we can respond to them is his kind of most consistent kind of theme, in all of his work, really.
Yep. Yeah, and so I mean, it's hard to talk about this movie without spoiling it. But the last 30 minutes are reality, which is where Naomi Watts is a woman named Diane Selwyn, and she's in love with this actress, but the actress is dating the director, and then all the figures that have popped up throughout the dream part of the film are real and part of reality. But the mystery and the brilliance of the film's dream logic is her being in the dream and being hit with all of that. She goes to Winkies, and there's a waitress named Diane Selwyn, and she's like, why do I know that name? That's familiar to me. And that's her name in real life. And Naomi Watts gets to play the plucky, eager, I'm going to make it in Hollywood woman. And she also gets to show off her acting chops, where she, as that character, puts on a very sultry performance with, I forget who it is, but he's a, let's say now a George Clooney type, where he's a handsome older man. She falls in love with this mysterious woman. They begin a love affair. And so all of the pieces are there, every bit of it. It's just, it seems like he wrote the last 30 minutes and then was like, so I'll pull this and put this here and this here and this here and create these very odd dreams with all these weird people and figures and slang and motivations that don't make sense. Like, there's a scene where there's a guy with a gun, and he kills another guy to take his black book, but he accidentally shoots through the wall, and there's this really big lady that he shot, and so then he has to kill her, and then it's very farcical, like all these different people he's killing and making mistakes along the way. Like, it's just bizarre, and you're going, what? Why is this happening?
I will say that Naomi Watts is allowed to be in this and essentially use this to kickstart her career. And the reason, I mean, relatively speaking, this was kind of the start of her meteorite rise. And she's allowed to be in this because she follows my rule of having been in an awful low-budget horror movie a couple of years before, because she was in
like
Children
George
of the
Clooney.
Corn 4. The Gathering, which on my TFM ranked list is the 7th worst out of 11. the Children of the Corn movie.
You
I
do wonder
wouldn't
how,
say best.
you do wonder kind of how much kind of that her character's story kind of reflects her own, arrive on Hollywood and stuff, just trying to make ends meet and just waiting for your big break and everything. Apparently, obviously a few years later, she was in Peter Jackson's King Kong, which she hesitated at, taking the role. And this one thing she mentioned in her little tribute to David Lynch the other day. She said basically, David was the reason I took the role. He told me, no woman who sits in the hand of King Kong can fail to become a movie star.
Yep, and after this, she obviously does the remake of The Ring.
Yes. Let's see. There's the Hollywood plot is fun. It's this sinister conspiracy for the director, and he goes home and his wife is in bed with Billy Ray Cyrus, who beats him up.
Very bizarre.
But then another man invades the home, and Billy Ray Cyrus tries to beat him up, but he gets beat up.
That is, you say about kind of audiences laughing at weird bit. That scene is genuinely funny.
Yeah, there's a lot of funny in this movie. He punches her out. Yeah, but it
shouldn't be good, but it is.
Every step of the way, you're like, I don't understand what's what. Now we're in this place where there's a woman lip syncing a 1950s song. I don't know why they're cutting or not. They don't cut the Laura Herring, who plays Rita / Camilla. They don't. She tries to cut her hair, and they're like, "Oh, we'll get a wig," and they find a Naomi Watts haircut wig and put it on her. So it's now they look like each other, and they're going to a silent opera where there's a magician who's summoning sounds, and then a woman sings, but then she collapses, and her song continues, and every bit of it's so cool and weird, and a big part of what Lynch does in all of his movies, but this one in particular, I think, is the soundtrack where I'll use an example from Lost Highway. She walks out and sees the envelope with the tape on the steps outside, and there's creepy music playing. So that's what takes the moment and makes it sinister and weird instead of just, I'm picking up an envelope. I think in any other movie that would be kind of quiet. You'd hear ambient sound.
It's telling, I think, that David Lynch insists on being the sound designer on all of his films, really, because that's such an essential aspect of his kind of his vision, his twisted little world.
Yeah. Just looking it up on Wiki, because I was following up on who played the cowboy in it, who was Monty Montgomery.
He was a producer of Wild at Heart, wasn't he?
And he also co-directed and wrote Catherine Bigelow's first film, The Loveless.
Ooh.
I think that's her first one. Isn't it? Loveless?
Starring Willem Dafoe, who is also in Wild at Heart.
Yeah. But Mulholland Drive apparently was originally shot as a television pilot.
Interesting.
And so a lot of it was shot in '99, because I was looking at IMDb and found 2 versions of Mulholland Drive, both by David Lynch, and got confused.
Because then you think of it as sort of like almost like an extension of the Twin Peaks universe at first, and it became a different TV project, and then it eventually decided.
And essentially, nobody liked his cut, so he went and added the bit at the end on. To try and make it a feature and therefore make it make sense. And then people took it on board. So there is a reason why everything's kind of open to interpretations. It's because it's kind of an edited pilot into a feature, essentially.
Another Lynch crossover is like the little person in the radiator. You have the little old people that run out of a bag in an alley to go haunt Naomi Watts. So even in the part that's reality, there is still like weird stuff going on. One of the popular
inserts to all of the Lynch movies. Even in reality, there's still weird stuff going on.
One of the kind of common interpretations I see is about the sinisterness of Hollywood. People try and retrospectively apply a not really a Me Too lens, but in that sense where everything is conspiratorial and dark. And I don't think Lynch is necessarily making it about Hollywood. I think that LA is more of a land of dreams. It's a spot that he lives in, that he's familiar with. And it's really just about, I'm going to make this weird story about this person with amnesia trying to figure out who they are, and a bizarre lesbian romance.
Yeah, Hollywood is a land of dreams, but a lot of them are bad or weird or scary.
Yes,
and you've got the magician where it comes out and goes, kind of, this is all an illusion. Nothing you see is real. And obviously, filmmaking and the movie making business is all illusion and real storytelling. So
I mean, he was a big fan of like performances in front of like velvet curtains, wasn't he? And I kind of think all Lynch films should really start with like curtains opening,
Yeah.
Yes.
Or David Lynch like coming out a bit like one of the old kind of horror producers, like a William Castle or Carl Levy Jr. to introduce his film.
I'll create an AI version of that.
That would be literally David Lynch's worst nightmare.
That's David Lynch's weird dream that he's having. Yeah, I mean, look, it's tough to like think of things to say about it because it's an experience, really. Like you have to just sit down and watch it and go, oh, okay, I have no idea what's happening, but either you like it or you don't.
And again, just get used, just teach yourself not to care that you don't understand it. I mean, I remember seeing the very first time I saw it, I didn't get it at all. Second time around, I think I probably got a bit more. But then the third time I watched it, I think I got it less again. It's like it doesn't kind of become more clear, with more watches. But you do notice new stuff each time. It's kind of shift your perspective a bit. So it's a fascinating one to revisit every now and then.
I'm so glad you said that because this is one of the only Lynch movies I all the way through before kind of a couple of days ago I'd seen Firewalk with Me for our old podcast episode, and I'd seen this years ago. And kind of, I remembered obviously the diner scene. I remembered the shot of the Mulholland Drive thing, and I remembered it got 2 female leads in it, and it was set in Hollywood, and that was all I remembered pretty much. And I remembered not getting it, and I watched it again today, and I'm like, I'm still fairly sure that I don't get it. Am I just being stupid and dumb? Because that's the general thing, isn't it? If you don't get a movie, oh, you're an absolute moron. You're just not using your brain. And it's like, well, maybe it's just a film that you're not meant to get, And therefore, if you come up with an interpretation, technically you're wrong because there is no interpretation.
I think Lynch would love the idea that everyone has a entirely different kind of perspective of kind of what's going on in his movies and what they mean and stuff. And that's one of the reasons why he never wanted to kind of nail down the meaning, and he hated being asked to explain it. He just look, I've made this. Take it how you will, and that's great.
Whenever we talk about like Barths and we talk about reception sort of studies in communication and stuff, like I think David Lynch is the pinnacle of it's all audience. Like with most films there's usually a specific intent, and I think with Lynch he's just kind of following instinct. Obviously that he does have to like have a story, and he's able to like put elements together that are consistent, but I don't think he's always doing it to achieve something specific. It's more just to create something that provokes the mind and thought and works on a more spiritual level than
he kind of puts together almost like a narrative of ideas rather than a narrative of all the loose ends tied up. So there are parts that will I think a lot of it is like 70-80% it all works, but then he kind of goes, well, you know what, there are things in life that we don't actually understand how we get from here to here, so I kind of have the reign to throw stuff in, and therefore that can change everyone's interpretation, and I've got enough narrative in there that it'll satisfy the people wanting a narrative arc. So for something like Blue Velvet is obviously a very clear, there is a beginning, there's a middle and an end, even if there's some weird dark stuff happening in the middle. Mulholland Drive, to a certain extent, you can find a narrative in there, even if it goes off on one.
Yeah.
But then there's also stuff in the middle where you go, therefore have fun with meaning and stuff, and you don't often get to do that. So good on.
Before we mention his last feature, he has a ton of short films that we haven't mentioned.
Yeah.
So if you ever want to go look up his short films or web series like Rabbits,
I've got them all on DVD. I've just never actually cracked open that disc like all of his big ones. I'll say again, I did watch one of his ones he did in the 90s. I watched the Cowboy and the Frenchman. Which was one of the ones he did with Barradeen Stanton. That's well worth a look.
How many times did you see the Cowboy?
He's in it throughout.
Is it one time or 2 times?
Yeah. So that's like about 25 minutes. I think it's on Mubi at the minute. But that's good. It's just a nice little kind of gentle comedy. Basically, just these ranch hands basically just buffing this French guy carrying a suitcase full of imported goods. And they obviously got the language barrier, but they just generally shoot the shit for a bit and hang out. It's nice.
Rabbits, I forget what it comes on. It comes on one of the Blu-rays or Criterions or something, but it's so weird. It's my favorite, like just short David Lynch stuff. Now
I'm actually upset.
Ones that really kind of avant-garde.
Yeah, I'm actually now upset that Lynch never got together with Junji Ito.
Yeah.
Because they got that dark thing, but then they also look like they just love just to kick back and play with some cats for about 5 hours. Which is a thing Junji Ito does. He just goes online and does a thing of rating anime cats for their cuteness, and then goes and makes Uzumaki and Gyo and Amigara faults and everything like that.
I mean, the other year he did one for Netflix, didn't he? Is it what Jack did? Is it? Or
what did Jack do?
And it's just Lynch and a monkey conversation.
Him and Robbie Williams.
Love that movie.
But his final feature film, and it's a real shame we will never get another one. But Inland Empire, I said Twin Peaks is the event. No, Inland Empire it's just so strange.
I've still not experienced it. I've never. As much as I like his stuff, I've never thought, what I want to do now, I've got 3 hours to kill. I'm going to watch this really experimental epic that I'm not going to understand at all.
I think it's not distilled Lynch. It's like you could replace that definition of Lynchian with Inland Empire. He wrote it, he directed it, he produced it, sound design, edited. He was the cinematographer. Shot it on a low quality HD camera. Like it's so fun.
To a certain extent, I think most David Lynch movies can be started out with Rod Serling giving an introduction. It's like, you have now entered the Twilight Zone. And just continue on for the rest of it. Like that's all you need.
I'm sure he loved it.
Lynch verse.
Grab a cigarette.
Portrait of a
cherry
man.
Pie. And then also I like to watch his weather reports, and his today's number is he would do those on YouTube, but as his health declined, he unfortunately stopped. But just little short videos where he sat down in front of his webcam and talked.
And he got a whole new audience like during lockdown, didn't he? Which was great, much younger audiences. Just this is cool, kind of weird old man, Just see what he's up to today.
That is David Lynch.
It's just a shame. You could tell he was aging, and he was very towards the end of his life. He was different, and that's what happens when you get old and you smoke since you were 8 years old.
No, that's
I mean, amazingly, Barradeen Stanton, did the same, and he lived till he was like 90 something, 92, 93, I think. So it's just down to genetics, isn't it? Some people just dealt, good cards, and others aren't.
Yeah. So
this is therefore a thing of kids don't smoke. And
that too.
I will also say, as an actor, I think he's in the upper echelon of directors who are also actors. Because a lot of them, Tarantino should never have acted in any of his films because he is god awful, and he always is.
I mean, I'll allow Tarantino going for Reservoir Dogs purely to save money. because it's his first one, and that's kind of fair enough.
Yeah.
You get killed off fairly early. You're in about 2 scenes, and you need it just because you're getting paid the same amount. That's fine.
But I think Lynch in general is always worth seeing on screen as a presence, because he's so iconic. Just a film I would highly recommend. Obviously, he wasn't creatively involved in it, but he acts in it. Lucky, which was Harry Dean Stanton's last major film, one of his few leading roles. Basically playing a slightly exaggerated version of himself. Just old man just shuffling around town day after day, chain smoking and going to his favorite bar and just chatting to people. And David Lynch plays his best friend in that, and they hang out.
I thought you were talking about David Lynch then.
No. It's Harry Dean Stanton plays Lucky. Yeah, he's David Lynch's friend. Who's lost his tortoise? He keeps talking about this tortoise, and he's real upset because I've got to find him. I've got to find him. He's that he's outlived all of my wives. I've got to find him.
He was. I mean, again, I'm not the Lynch head. I've seen a couple of his films and bits of others, and just never really kind of gone. The bits I'd seen weren't attractive to me personally to go and sit down and watch them all. But I appreciate the craft, and he was a one of a kind, and he was a genius and a madman. And I know we have a laugh at auteur theory, but if there ever was one. In terms of kind of dark, weird, surreal visionary, then Lynch would be the kind of epitome of that, if nothing else.
Yeah. And if you could take one of his quotes to the grave, obviously it's going to be going around a lot this week, with what's been going on in the States, but, just fix your heart, just just take that with you. Don't judge people. Don't bring your prejudice to the table. Just fix your heart. Have empathy, and the world will be a better place.
Do transcendental meditation, but don't pay anybody for it. Yep. All right. Well, that's it for our episode on David Lynch. I almost said that's it for I guess it is it for David Lynch, but that's too dark. But we'll be back next time with something.
I do think eventually we will actually do an episode on a filmmaker that's still alive. And we won't just suddenly do an episode on a filmmaker because they passed away about a week beforehand.
Yes, that would be ideal. Yes. We'll see, though. Well, we did Jennifer Kent and Luca Guadagnino.
Yeah.
But I'm going. We did.
When there's two of us, it's our default kind of thing to do, isn't it?
We did Breathless when Godard died. We did Roger Corman after he died. For years, we were going. We need to do a Roger Corman episode, and then he died. And I was like, oh damn! I guess we better do it now.
We should find young people that we like, maybe.
That have done about 3 films.
Yeah. We'll be back next time with something else. Until then, guys, where can people find you?
You can find me at SSP Thinks Film across. I suppose it's mostly Blue Sky now. I haven't deleted my Twitter account yet, but I'm not using it. I've logged out of all devices, so I probably will be deleting it at some point. All my stuff, if I feel the need to write, will be at sspthinksfilm.com. I don't think I've ever actually written anything about David Lynch or even reviewed any of his films, but
nice.
I've got nothing new to promote. I am writing a Nosferatu review, but it's not finished yet. Might be up for next week.
We'll save that if we ever do a Nosferatu episode. Hopefully you don't find me anywhere. I am K Judgmental in the various places. Probably mainly now on the Blue Butterfly. I am now actively trying to keep off X, considering that the owner is a Nazi. I don't think I've got anything major for. I may have shown this last time. I don't know if it had come through. Yes, it had, but I'm going to plug it again. Please pick up a copy of Masks by Jim Horlock, because I edited it. And my next bit of editing is coming out next week. I don't know if I'll have it in time, but I couldn't remember when it had actually come out and I'd got it. But please do, because The more of those that get bought, the bigger chance that we can actually get paid for working on projects like that. So
Yes.
Yeah.
And you can find me. I'm gonna say across the web at Jacob Film Guy. They exist. They're just the apps aren't on my phone. So, but you could still follow me. I don't care. Let's see. I did at the Film Magazine. You can go until 2030. Read my review of Mulholland Drive. I did that a year ago, almost to the day.
Did you do a Where to Start with Lynch as well?
I did. Where to Start with David Lynch. You can go read that. And then a couple other pieces I found. This is from one of our guests. They wrote what David Lynch got right about Dune 1984. And
not much.
There was an Elephant Man review as well. And you know what? I'll do this 10 best Harry Dean Stanton appearances by Sam.
Yay, that was me.
Yeah, so go check out our work at the Film Magazine because it's still there. We still wrote it. It's still valuable. I haven't had a chance to write anything on my my what do you call it? The stupid app.
Page, blog, something.
Substack. Yeah, all these new apps, newfangled. I'm getting too old for this. But I reviewed Better Man. I reviewed the dumb Bob Dylan movie. And I'm going to have something up about Wolfman and the Brutalist. And so, yeah, I'm back in school, so keep an eye out for my inconsistent writing that is at least being written sometimes.
Good, yeah.
Yes. And we don't have merch to plug anymore. Maybe we'll make merch. I mean,
Yes.
you may still be able to buy TFM Redbubble stuff. I'm sure the PayPal is still
theoretically
active.
you should be able to, yeah. So if you still want to give us money, then please do.
Yeah, please still. Joe will distribute the money because he's the nicest person we know. So, is that
Speak
it?
for yourself.
I think that's it. Thank you for listening and goodbye. Oh, follow us Second Cut Pod. Email us at secondcutpod@gmail.com. Okay, now bye.
Bye.